PCEC Expats Club is a non-profit social organisation and our speakers are volunteers. The club as such assumes no responsibility or liability for the professional reputation of or the quality of services provided by the speaker today.
Everybody's awake now? Good. Good morning, everybody. My name's Roy Alberston, and I welcome you to the Sunday morning meeting of the PCEC Expats Club, where expats are helping expats, and as you all know, the #1 expats club in Thailand. So please turn off your phones so we don't interrupt the speaker. Your girlfriend can wait till after 12 o'clock. If there's a conversation you need to have, you should have had it over breakfast. If not, take it outside. So again, we don't disturb our speakers. There's an abbreviated newsletter on the back table, the back information table, I must add, because there's lots of information there, including sign-up sheets for the special interest groups. Or, for even more information, you can visit our website, pcec.club. And if you want to make a suggestion, not a gesture, but a suggestion, you can put it in the suggestion box. And if you want a reply, please kindly add your email. No phone call, no phone numbers. The young lady that answers all the suggestions doesn't like heavy breathing after 12 o'clock. Okay, if you're not a member, you might consider joining our club, or you might need to renew at the end of the meeting. Judith will take your money, and Watt will take your photograph if you're a new member. Watt is from the Pattaya Mail, so you might even get your photograph in the paper. Anyway, see Judith afterwards. There are a number of special interest groups on the back table, and also that has been revived, a free DVD and book library. Now, we go every week to painstakingly put the books and DVDs out, and there's a couple of folders there with probably 100 or so DVDs in. Please do not take the folders. You are depriving the other members of the DVDs. Take the DVD you want to look at, but not the black folder. Somebody took one home last week and needs to bring it back, please. If that's you, please bring it back next week. Thank you. The PCEC Expats Club is a non-profit organisation, and our speakers are volunteers. The club as such assumes no responsibility or liability for the professional reputation of or the quality of services provided by our speaker or speakers today. The speaker here is purely for your entertainment, enjoyment and education. So, if you haven't read the newsletter and you haven't looked at our wonderful information on the website, I have to tell you who the speaker is. And we welcome back Jacob Frills, who is visiting from Denmark. He flew in recently, I believe. Was it recently? Yeah. By plane. Otherwise your arms get tired. Is going to speak to us about virtual reality and really how virtual reality could save your life. The idea behind virtual reality is something that's been around for many years. However, it is now that we have the ability to bring the idea to life due to recent changes of technological advances. Put the tea back in. During his talk, he will address what is virtual reality and why is it important and what we can use it for. Jacob was here 2017 in July on the topic of body language, you may remember. So please give Jacob a warm hand, as well as a big hand.
All right, thank you so much, Roy, and thank you so much, everybody, for letting me come back and give you another talk. I hope this one's going to be just as interesting as the one about body language. But virtual reality is also one of my great passions. I'm actually an expert in virtual reality, and I use it a lot in my business. But I'll be explaining more about how I use that in my business in just a little bit. But when I say virtual reality, what do you guys think? Any guesses? Virtual reality? Yeah?
It's a technology that you can interact as if it was a real world.
Yes, exactly. Virtual reality is basically a computer simulation. And with this computer simulation, it's supposed to be simulating reality. And as Roy mentioned, this is something that's been around for quite a long time, but due to we've been so good at advancing our technology the past few years and the past decades, we actually have the ability to use this technology. And as Roy mentioned, I'm going to be going through a small little agenda that I just want to show you today. And the first thing I'm going to be talking about is what is virtual reality, what is it all about, what is the form of it and everything like that. Then we're going to move on, why is it important, why is it going to save your life. After that, then what can we use it for, and then I'll also explain a little bit about how I use it in my business. And then last but not least, I've also taken a bunch of virtual reality headsets with me. So if you'd like to try a haunted house or a roller coaster, or you'd like to see medical treatment being done through virtual reality, you can also try that at the end of my talk. So that's also a possibility there. All right, so let's get started. What is virtual reality? Okay, it's not working. There we go. Okay, so what is virtual reality? As I mentioned, it's a computer simulation. And in this computer simulation, you can basically simulate real life. But of course, it's not real. And do any of you remember the movie Total Recall from the 1980s with Arnold Schwarzenegger? Yeah? And that was actually one of the first movies that actually showed virtual reality. Do you remember when he saw that advertisement that he wanted to go, you could visit Mars without actually going there? And he actually ends up going and sitting in this chair. As you can see, he's in some pain. Of course, something else, if you watch the movie, you know what happens. But that was basically the first time that the public basically met virtual reality. We had also seen it a little bit from Star Trek and whatnot, so as you can also see in this photo as well, but that's a little bit different, which I'll explain in just a moment. But basically is that you can travel somewhere, you can see something in a virtual reality without you actually physically having to be there. But, of course, that was a very primitive sort of virtual reality. And now you can actually start to feel different things. You can wear these suits where you basically can stimulate, and basically vibrate and massage and all these different things. So slowly virtual reality is becoming more and more advanced. But as you can also see from Star Trek over here, I don't know if you all know what a holodeck is. How many of you actually seen Star Trek? Yeah? So you all know what a holodeck is then. Basically another kind of virtual reality. It's a much more advanced because it's basically light-emitting diodes where you can basically see, the most known one is from Star Trek Voyager, where the Doctor basically is basically a hologram where you can walk around. So that's also a form of virtual reality as well, but a much more advanced one that we currently have. But basically, virtual reality is a computer simulation where you don't physically have to be in that area or in that environment. Fantastic. That's good. So the last couple of years, it's begun to get a lot of mainstream media attention. 20, 30 years ago, we didn't have the technology to actually go out and develop this virtual reality, but now we do. And now it's actually become cheap enough so that everybody, the members of the public, can actually use it. Back then it was only often, for example, when you're training to become a pilot, that was also a simulation of virtual reality there, but now you can actually use it as a private person. You can actually afford it to buy it yourself. But the last few years, it's had a lot of mainstream media attention. One of the most recent movies, actually this one right here, which was Steven Spielberg. He was a famous director. He was a part of producing this movie as well, where everything is basically about virtual reality. It's basically a game where they have to go and save the world and whatnot, but also because it's showing how important virtual reality is already is now. And this is also another type of virtual reality where you basically, you're strapped in, you have these special shoes on, and now you can actually, you have the virtual reality headset on, and you can actually run, you can feel things, you can basically, let's say, you want to be a soldier, you can have a gun as well, and all these different things. I tried this 2 years ago, and just after 5 minutes I had this headset on, and I was running and all these different things, I actually believed that I was in this world. I didn't think about, oh no, this is simulation. It was so lifelike that I actually started to, I was scared when, for example, a zombie ran up to me. I was scared when something shocked me or something vibrated. So we actually have the possibility, and we have the technology to basically go in and see, okay, this actually looks so lifelike that you can't even distinguish it from real life. So that's one of the fascinating things about virtual reality as well, seeing as we have developed so much. But a lot of mainstream media attention the past few years. But also to explain a little bit about the different virtual reality levels. Of course, you have the very high-end, the most expensive virtual realities. And just to give you kind of an idea of what kind of price range are we basically out in. You can buy a virtual reality headset. Of course, it requires that you also buy the headset, but you also buy a gaming computer. And that will probably run you around 100,000, 150,000 baht to get that. But then you have top quality, high-end virtual reality. So this is really, you know, lifelike, and you can, when you get the headset on, you also have the ability to move around the room, and you have the ability to shoot things and all these different stuff. So it's also a lot about games, but you can also use it in a lot of other different functions. But that's basically the high-end consumer area for 100,000 to 150,000 baht. Then you have the mid-level, and virtual reality often requires that you have a computer to basically put this headset to, which is quite expensive. But actually now the Oculus and the HTC Vive, which are the leading companies within virtual reality for consumers, they've actually made one where you can basically have a standalone headset. So you don't need that computer, you save that 50,000 baht. But you can get that for around 20,000 baht, which is a massive price reduction as to the previous models. And then you have the absolute lowest level, called Lucky Link, and that's the one that I brought with you. It's the most portable and the easiest to use because you don't need to be taught or trained how to basically use the virtual reality. It's much more simple, and it's much cheaper. It just requires that you buy the headset and then you can use your own smartphone, which is really genius there. But you can try that after I'm done with my talk. And that will run you around 800 baht. So you can see there are different levels, of course, varying in quality. The lowest one is obviously the lowest form of quality, and then of course when you move up to the high end, that's the best kind of quality there. But it's still, all three are still very good experiences, as you can see later. Oh, there we go. So why is virtual reality important? A lot of you may be thinking, oh, this is just for gamers, you know, what can I even use this for? It's not relevant for me to hear about this or use this technology. But actually, we're starting to use it within, to do both medical training. Basically, surgeons, they basically practice before they actually go out, and they actually do real surgeries on real people. And why is that important, Jacob? It's important because the more practice that a doctor can have, or a surgeon can have, before he actually goes out and does the proper real surgery on a real person, the better. Because basically he's had training. He knows exactly what he's doing, and he has had the proper training. Without, of course, you can also do it on different ways, but it's basically a great way for them to train without actually having any real consequences in real life. But you can also use it in retirement homes. Actually, in Denmark, they have they've started to basically buy these virtual reality headsets. So let's say that you enjoyed visiting Italy from many years ago, but of course you become a little bit handicapped, you become a little bit older, and you don't have the ability to basically travel. You can put these headsets on, and you can basically experience, for example, going to Italy, or going to Thailand, or going to a concert, or all these different things. So actually, they've extended basically the life expectancy of a lot of older people in Denmark at retirement homes, which is a good thing. It's a fantastic way so they can actually, without having to leave the retirement home, they can experience many of the things that they've done in their life throughout the many years that they've lived. So it's a fantastic way also to basically increase life expectancy. But I also brought a little video from you. This is an advertisement of a VR company that basically is developing within the medical world. Let's just watch it real quick. Is there a... Yes, perfect.
My name is Justin Barad. I'm a former game developer turned orthopedic surgeon, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of OSO VR. What we're expected to do when we're learning a new surgical technique is fly out to a remote cadaver course. We get a chance to practice in a hands-on way on a cadaver. However, you only get to do that once. Imagine studying for a test and then taking that test 6 months later, with no option to practice in between. It was with this knowledge and my background in game development that I founded OSO VR, which is a surgical training platform. OSO VR allows you to practice modern surgical techniques anytime, anywhere, in a hands-on manner.
We can bring new surgical techniques and technologies to patients and solve one of the most pressing problems associated with educating providers around the world today.
We're working to increase the adoption of new medical technology, improve patient outcomes, and democratize access to modern surgical techniques. OSO VR, virtual surgery, real results.
And that was just a short advertisement from one of the leading companies within this medical surgery training programs. And as I mentioned, it's one of the fantastic ways where doctors can basically practice doing all these different surgeries. And there's a big potential there that you can use this, so you ensure that the doctors have proper training before they actually go out and do the real surgery. So, but you can also use it in many different ways. Of course, I've talked a lot about the medical area, but you can also use it within education. And within education, you can use it for a bunch of different things. Of course, now there's a guy up here having a virtual reality headset on, and you can see he's learning about the anatomy of the body. So basically, instead of just having to read it in a book and only looking at it there, you can actually go and you can see, okay, so what does the blood vessels look like? What does the liver look like? And you can basically get both a visual perspective on it, but you can also get a very detailed experience of it as well. So that's one of the fantastic things that you can use for education too. And as you can see here, there's a doctor here. I'll just get the laser pointer out. And one of the things that you can also do with it is that you can have robots basically perform the surgery for you. So she's actually not touching the patient, she's actually just playing these two little, what do you call it, joysticks, and basically the robot will then perform the surgery. So she can see everything, she's basically there, but she's just standing right beside the patient. And why is that a good thing? It's a good thing because a robot's hand is basically a much more steady and they can do a much more precise job than a human can. So you can also use it in that sense as well. But to make it a little bit more concrete, I also want to tell you about how I use it in my business. And in my business, we, just to tell you about what my business basically does is that we are a training business. We teach presentation technique, and we do this primarily in the educational sector in Denmark. And in Denmark, we have a lot of oral examinations. And these oral examinations are extremely important for the overall yearly grades for the students. And often, a lot of the students, they have problems with these presentations because they're so important. And I saw this problem around 3 years ago along with my business partner, and we thought, why are there so many young people who feel so stressed? Why are they not getting the grades? Why are they not meeting their full potential? And we could see it was because they often didn't perform to the oral examinations. Again, you can be the smartest person in the world, but if you can't actually say and communicate everything that you have in your mind, that's a bit of a problem, because especially in Denmark and around in the world, you need to say something, otherwise people don't know what you know. And we saw basically this potential here, so we started a training business 3 years ago. And now basically what happens is the local government, they hire us in, and we go in and basically we teach them how to present, how to structure a presentation properly. And one of the ways we do this is by using virtual reality. I've also brought along this camera right here. Do any of you know what this camera is? It's a 360-degree camera. And with this 360-degree camera, you can basically film 360 degrees. And the way it works is that there are two lenses, as you can see here. and they both film 180 degrees. So one side 180 degrees, and the other side 180 degrees. And what you do is, you do something called stitching. You stitch these two files together. And the way that we use it in my business is that if you need to practice getting better at doing presentations and going to oral examinations, you need to both practice but also see it. So we use this 360 camera to film the students. We also use it for adults as well. And we film them, and then basically we go out and edit this video, and then you can watch yourself in these headsets. And then you can say, okay, whoa, why do I keep touching my face? Or why do I keep standing like this? Or why do I keep doing that? And it's a great way to basically have great experience with how can I actually get my presentations to become even better than they already are. So this is also one of the fun ways that we basically use it to train the students. And we've actually had great success with using this technology. We've actually increased some of the school's grades by around like 2.5 to get in Denmark you have this basically, you have grades that go up to 12. So 12 is the absolute best grade you can get. And often we saw a lot of the schools that we visited, they had a grade average around 6 or 7. And now we actually increased it around to 8.5 to 9. So you can see that it's actually working and helping these students a lot with getting better grades, which also means that they can move on to and take their dream education that they want to have there. Okay, put it there. But I also brought along a video that I want to show you. And this is basically the project that I was talking about. Is this 12-week program. We go into primary schools and we train these students in presentation technique. Unfortunately, the video is in Danish, but I just want it's a quick summary so you can see exactly how we basically use the technology when we do all these training courses. So let's just watch this short video.
Vi skulle lidt nu videre, fordi I kommer til at skulle lave en præsentation. Hver gruppe får 10 minutter, og så efter de 10 minutter, så skal gruppen komme ind igen, og så skal I sælge den her krans der sammen.
Jeg synes helt bestemt, det sjoveste det var, at vi skulle lave den lille krans der, fordi det gav sin udfordring, at man skulle op og komme ikke tilbage hele tiden.
Det her, det hedder 360 graders kamera, så det filmer ikke kun dem, der kommer med, men det filmer også dem, der kigger.
Hvad kunne I bruge det til, at I vil filme med VR-briller med til fremlæg?
Man ser sin egen fejl, det gør man ikke under selve opgaven eller fremlæggelsen. Men bagefter kan man se sin egen fejl, og man gør det forkert. Så skal man med de her VR-briller, hvad er det snart til faktisk.
Og så kan I tænke over, okay, det her gjorde vi super godt, det her kan vi gøre bedre, og om 10 uger kan I tænke, det man skal virkelig blive bedre.
So I know you couldn't understand what was being said in the video, but it was just to show that how we actually use the technology. As you can see, we used the 360 camera, we filmed it, and then basically the students saw themselves. And basically what they were saying in this video was that it was fantastic to see yourself from a completely different angle. You usually can't actually experience this again because you're watching your own presentation as you basically were the audience. So it's a fantastic way to basically train and also learn and improve your presentations. So that's basically how we use it in my business. We've been doing it for the last 3 years, and it's actually become quite popular. And I can say with quite a lot of confidence that we're the only business that at least does this in Denmark, and perhaps even the world. And we've seen this technology, and we just said to ourselves, you know, we need to adapt. We need to bring it into the business. We need to find out how can we actually use it. But of course, you can also use it in a lot of other different areas. You can also not only, this is just one way that we use it, but you can also use it in training, in science, in math. You can make basically learning fun and very, very interactive as well, which is important. But now I've told a little bit about virtual reality, and I'm sure that there are a lot of questions. So if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them now. Any questions? Because I remember the last time I was here last year, I didn't even have enough time for questions. So this time I really wanted to make sure that I had time.
Oh, sorry, I've got a frog in my throat. Great presentation. I love this technology. I know it's the future. But I just want to ask you about the development of it and the moving forward, because at the moment it's very optical. You're talking about the 360-degree camera. You're talking about the headsets. I know there are suits that you can wear and there are environments you can interact with, but they're still very, very expensive. do you remember the movie Strange Days?
No, I don't believe I've seen that movie.
You should look at that.
Yeah.
Okay, so this basically is a movie with a device that goes on someone's head that interacts with the cerebral cortex and records everything as it happens in real life, which you can then replay into someone else's head, so they are experiencing it straight through the brainstem as if they had done it. Now, do you think that might be the way that this technology will go, or will it stay as a physical interaction with the body?
That's actually a really, really great question. I mean, I think it's going to take at least maybe 20 years, if we're optimistic, before we actually get to that level. But I do think that eventually we will be getting to that area. But of course, as you mentioned, it's very optical at the moment. You don't really have these feelings. But of course, we probably will get there at one point. But it's first going to take quite a few years before we get there. But as you also mentioned, I think that's actually, it gets a little bit scary when we get to that level, because first of all, you can experience what somebody else experienced without actually experiencing yourself. Now, I know that's a little bit confusing, but it gets a little bit scary, because then how do you know what's actually real? Where do you distinguish these two things? And as I mentioned, when I tried this, when I was running around and I had this gun and I was shooting zombies, and after 5 minutes, you know, I started to believe that I was in this world. So where is the limit? Where do we say that this is real and where this is virtual reality? So I mean, I kind of hope that we won't adapt that technology that way, but we probably will at one point. So I hope that answers your question.
On your left here, please. On your left.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for your presentation. Very interesting. You've actually almost answered my question there. Obviously, virtual reality has its uses, but is there not a danger here of eventually becoming divorced from reality, which I think you were trying to answer there? And I think that's a real danger. We all become zombies or whatever. Just looking ahead, after I'm gone for sure, but I think you kind of answered the question there, but maybe.
I mean, we also said this about, you know, mobile phones. You know, we said this about a lot of new technology, but I think we need to be a bit careful where we use this technology as well. But I think that, you know, naturally we'll find out how to basically use it where it's most relevant. But I do agree with you. We need to be careful, because otherwise it can overtake our lives. I mean, we are living very sedentary lives. We always, you know. Basically, virtual reality is, instead of you looking at your mobile phone the whole time, you're just basically putting it right in front of your face. That's basically very, very simple what we're basically doing. But I do agree with you, we need to be careful, because otherwise the technology can be dangerous. So.
Okay, thank you for your answer. That answers my question.
Yeah, all right, thank you so much.
Over here.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm intrigued by the 360-degree camera, using it for presentation skill enhancement. So if I'm understanding correctly, you can use that to basically take a presentation piece by piece and see where the audience is responding to what you're saying and how they're reacting like moment to moment. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. I mean, basically the way that we use it is, unfortunately, we can't watch it live. It takes a while. You have to edit the video and you have to download it. But then we can do that within 30 minutes. Of course, the longer the video, the bigger the file size, and that's one of the problems, because this is a 4K camera, and if you just film 5 minutes, it's like 2 or 3 gigabytes. So it does take a little while, but after half an hour we can edit it, and you can basically watch your presentation. Not immediately after, but it's going to take at least 30 minutes, and you can watch it. And that's I'm glad that you mentioned it, is that it's so fantastic that you can see, I mean, is my audience even interested? Maybe I should have actually filmed my presentation today to actually see, okay, so I can go back and watch it and say, okay, so what went well, what could I do better? And that's basically how we're using the technology there. So, I mean, we've had a lot of great success with it, and the students find it very fun to watch themselves. It's a little bit scary, but it's also really, really fun, and you can learn a lot from it. Yeah?
Hello, excellent presentation.
My question, basically, the headset you're using at the moment is very, very bulky.
Yeah.
You're using a mobile phone and the old Nokias,
yeah.
and that's started off. Are they going to get much smaller? Because I might go.
Yes. I mean, if you already look back to some of the first headsets, you know, they're huge. But now, as you know, we've been able to develop the technology, and of course, this is still quite bulky. But there's also the Microsoft. They've developed something called the HoloLens, which basically just glasses, or it could even be contact lenses, as some of people have been talking about for quite a few years. But as the technology improves, then yes, it will become much, much smaller. Where basically, it will just be a pair of glasses, or you can put contact lenses in. That's at least what some people are predicting. But personally, I think within the next 10 years, as I mentioned, the first high-end, basically, virtual reality you can try is where you need to have a gaming computer and this virtual reality, which is around the same size, but there's a lot of cables. But now they've made it wireless, where basically you only need this headset where it has like 4K video. But as time goes on, it will become smaller and smaller. But probably within the next 5 to 10 years.
Thank you, Jacob. When I was around 12 years old, my family got its first television. That was my introduction to virtual reality for the first time. I didn't have to go there. I could see it on TV. But I do agree with the gentleman here about the worry of the young people who become so absorbed in the games that we've seen around in the past few years, and the games that we've ended up banning, perhaps, because they became so bad. If it's that real, they will be very bored with real life. And one of the problems may be the term reality. If we keep calling it a game, unreality, then perhaps they'll get the idea that it really isn't real, because the fear is that they believe it.
Yeah. I mean, this goes back to a completely different discussion, especially with, I don't know if you know about the game Grand Theft Auto, basically where you go around, you shoot a bunch of people, steal their cars and all these different things. But actually there was a study done where, I mean, people under 15, I think they tested some at 6, 7, they did a big study on it. And it actually showed that they actually could distinguish this from real life, and they could do that. But I do agree that when it becomes more and more realistic, that you can actually go around and you can feel it, and you can actually see it, that there could be this danger, but I don't think we're there just yet. And I think that it's we have to educate people, saying that there is a difference between virtual reality and reality. But I think it's likely, but not at this moment right now with the level that we're at.
And yeah, no, I'm short. Hello, and it was a lovely presentation.
Thank you so much. It's good to see you again.
You too. I have a question going back to the idea of travel versus real. Obviously, when we become older, we are more handicapped in getting out. But what about the sensual thing? Will there be a time when, if we do virtual reality, we will feel like we can touch something, smell something, hear something that is not piped in but extraneous?
Yes, most definitely. And I'm actually really glad that you asked this question. But actually, one of the industry that actually is promoting virtual reality the most is actually porn. I mean, they're basically the people who started this whole thing with virtual reality, because imagine if you didn't have to do anything. You put these glasses on, you put a suit on, you can feel everything, but you don't need to go out and actually do anything with a real person. So in that sense, with the sensory where you can smell, I mean, we also have interactive rooms where you can produce smoke, you can produce fish smells, you can produce all these different things. We don't have it, then you need to be in a room, basically, to create this artificial environment. But yes, that is going to happen for sure, because then it becomes more and more real. So yes, I'm 100% sure that that is going to happen in the future. Yeah.
My first experience with VR was 3D, and now you go to a shopping centre and you can experience 9D. I wonder technically if you could explain the difference between 3 and 9.
Okay, so 3D we just take the whole 3D is basically where you're sitting down and you wear the glasses. You know, the ones where there's one yellow and there's one red, where you basically experience. Then there's something called 4D. 4D is basically where the chair moves and there's like wind blowing in your face and there's like water and everything everywhere. And then of course 9D, I haven't heard about 9D, but I think the next level would be 5 and then 6. But then of course when you reach to 9D, basically you're basically there. It's basically virtual reality where you can feel everything and you basically can't distinguish anything between virtual reality and real life. It's basically the same. Yeah.
Over here.
All right. Any more questions?
Sorry, me again. We keep talking about this idea of virtual reality, and we're trying to establish a connection in the brain that makes us think that something is real. Now, I'm sure people understand that the brain receives electrical impulses that it interprets, and we see, and we hear, and we smell, and we touch, and all these senses are electrical impulses. So the applications for this technology are enormous. They're huge. You showed some examples on the screen of the medical applications and the educational applications. Hopefully we can develop those rather than the gaming and the porn. I mean, yeah, that's usually where the money comes from, but
yeah,
hopefully that will drive things that will be more beneficial to people. Is that the way? Your company obviously does that. That's what you do. Is that something you're driving to
I mean, basically, virtual reality is still very, very, very new. And I mean, we basically saw the potential with this camera. It was just a late night where we thought, oh, this camera that exists, how can we actually use it? So we bought one and we just started testing with it. But of course, I mean, we found we've been able to incorporate a business model that where we can use this this technology and actually be able to make money off it. But I also do think that it's going to be very hard to only focus on the medical research and all these different things. But we're going to also have this recreational virtual reality, if we can call it that. That's also going to be coming along as well, because you can't just advance technology in one area and not apply it somewhere else. So it's slowly going to be used everywhere else, because often there's also something called that it's blockchain. Everything needs to be open and all these different things. So most likely we will see both advances in the medical area, but also in the recreational virtual reality market as well. I don't think we can stop that development as well. But I'm actually not too afraid about this with porn. I mean, also I don't really want to talk so much about it because I don't think that's what we need to focus on. But I also see it as a possibility to cure loneliness. I mean, there's a lot of people who are quite lonely in life, and this can basically, help to alleviate that loneliness. But anyways, I don't want to talk too much about that. Yeah, but thank you.
I'll just ask the gentleman to leave the questions after.
This is the end. So
is it?
Yeah.
Can you continue with the question?
Yes, continue.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yeah. Any more questions? I love this Q&A. This is more fun than just talking. I love all these questions.
Hello.
Hello.
So I don't really have a question, but I would like to say something about the fears and the scary aspect of virtual reality. When you are a baby, you are in the womb of the mother, and of course, when you come out of the mother's womb, first thing is you will get scared, because you'll see something more than what was able for you to touch before. And right now is the time for virtual reality. It's nothing else but you get something more into the real world. Everybody says this virtual reality isn't real. So just look at the microscope. These are things you can see, they are not real for you, right? You see electrons. If you're diving deep into this, you say, oh, wow, there's something more than myself, what I can touch, what I can see with my senses right now. And virtual reality is something just moving in the other direction. We are growing up. We are seeing things we never been able to touched before. So don't be too much scared about it.
I mean, I totally agree with you as well. I mean, it's with almost every single new technology that we have that someone is always scared. I mean, personally, I'm someone who always supports any type and all types of technological advances because I think it can only benefit us. Of course, there are pros and cons to everything, but in the end, I mean, everybody says the same thing about the computer. Why do we need a computer? Why do we need a mobile phone? I mean, I think that as we move on and we develop all our different technologies, we only see the possibilities with it and not the dangers of it, because there's always pros and cons to everything. But sometimes you need to also think to yourself, look, you need to weigh the two different things. Are the pros better than the cons? But I mean, it's a never-ending discussion with basically all technology. But I do agree, we need to be less afraid. Of course, we need to have restrictions, and we need to find out how we can use it. But I really think that this virtual reality is the future, and there's nothing we can really do to stop it. And personally, I see a lot of advantage of it, especially for my business, but also in general. Yeah.
Thank you, great presentation.
Thank you.
I just have experience recently of the 360 camera. I've got an apartment for sale, and I've been trying with different agents to move it. The first one came with a small camera and took some photographs. The second one came back with another camera with a smartphone and took it. The third person came back with a 360, and absolutely incredible. Just stood it in the center of the room, and the two of us walked outside, and she operated it from her mobile phone. And it gave a great presentation. So there's one application that I experienced personally just a couple of weeks ago.
I mean, that's right. I haven't even mentioned about the real estate potentials. But also in Denmark, I actually have a friend of mine who does this exact same thing. But actually, they've taken it to the next level, where basically the customer, without having to visit of course, it's always best to visit the house or the apartment that you want to buy. But actually, you can take the headset on and you can basically watch it. You could also do the same thing with you want to buy a brand new BMW or a Honda. You can basically put on these glasses and experience how would it feel. You can't touch it, but it's not always possible for the car dealer to have all the cars on hand, basically at their shop. And you can customize it, you can add different things. So the car world is also starting to use virtual reality as well, so you can experience it without actually having to have the car physically present. But of course, again, nothing can really replace the real thing, but it's only something that you can use if you don't have the ability to see the real thing. Also, another famous supermarket chain in Denmark, they're also using it to sales training. So how do you actually customer service? How do you greet a customer properly? How do you stack things on the shelves? What do you do in a situation that a customer is angry at one of the employees or because they don't have a product? So you can also use it for sales training. And the reason why we do it is because the more we can get used to a certain situation, the more comfortable we are with it, and the better we can actually get at handling these different situations. So real estate, the car world, I mean, they all have their different applications, but there's so much potential there that all these businesses can use. But again, we're only starting to see it slowly become used now because it's becoming more and more mainstream. But thank you for your question.
What is the fallibility level of VR equipment at this stage of its evolution? Is it pretty reliable? Does it break down?
I mean, I would say that with this type, it's very, very reliable. It's your phone, and your phones nowadays are quite reliable. And if you want to, you can come and experience a roller coaster, a haunted house, medical training, whatever you want, sales training. We can find you a video on that, no problem. But basically, it's a video on YouTube. It's a 360 video. You put it down, so it's quite reliable. But of course, when you go higher and higher up, the more money you spend on these products, it's still reliable. But of course, because it's such a new technology, you're still one of the front runners on it, where you're basically helping the companies develop it, and you're sending feedback on it as well. But I would say it's somewhat reliable. But the more new you get with the virtual reality, of course, the less reliable it is. But I would say in general, it's quite reliable.
I just had a question about the radiation from these devices. It seems to be getting stronger and stronger. Is there, do you think, a danger from the microwave and other radiation from?
Well, I'm glad you actually asked this question. But actually, there was another study done by all phone companies. They do this exact same study where you need to have the phone up here next to the ear for a long, various periods of time. Sometimes it's 1.5 meters and all these different things. So they actually test the radiation, but often with virtual reality, you don't use it for more than 30 minutes or an hour. So there aren't any basically fears about this with radiation and whatnot. It's only if you use it for 12 hours, 16 hours, or 20 hours at a time, which of course, if you use a telephone, there's a real danger of that. But if you use the higher end virtual reality glasses, there is no mobile phone, there are no signals. That's all done through the computer. It's only showing the image up here, so there's no radiation there. But of course, we also use our mobiles a lot. We also need to think about, should we really keep our phones here beside, in our pockets? I mean, we have them on hand all the time. So I don't really see so much risk there, to be honest.
Can you see the time when VR could be used as a simulator, for argument's sake, learning to fly a plane?
Yes, most definitely. I mean, we've been using simulations for a very, very long time. Basically, it was just called simulation, but it's virtual reality. The way that pilots are trained, you need to have, I don't know how many hours of virtual training before you're actually allowed to go out and fly the real plane, because that gives you training, you're able to deal with certain situations without having any real consequences. So most definitely, they don't use this exact same technology, but they use the simulations where it's the big the plane just moving around and all that.
Like a hands-on sort of.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Hello?
Yeah.
You're obviously quite an expert in this. Don't you think it's a danger to the youngsters, and you should put an age limit on when they can use this item? Because that gentleman over there quite rightly pointed out that you are influencing, you are actually programming these youngsters. Okay, at our age we know reality and not reality, but youngsters, they can grow up in this virtual world, and I think you should think about age limits so they do learn from normal reality and not just sell it to them and say, put it on.
Yeah, I mean, at the same time, I think you can also compare this to mobile phones. I mean, again, a lot of youngsters do use their phones a lot. We're less outside, we have our iPads, we have our computers and all these different things. But again, I totally agree with you. We need to have some sort of education where we say, this is real life and this is virtual reality as well. But at the same time, I mean, we've been saying this for a long time as well with mobile phones and iPads. So, of course, there is a real danger, but I don't really know how big the danger really is with that, because everybody's on their phones. I mean, how many of you have a mobile phone? Okay, I see it's like 99% of you. I mean, we're used to this, and we say the same thing about all new technology, basically, that we need to be afraid and whatnot. So, of course, we need to say that you need to be careful, but in the end, I think that people will have to distinguish themselves. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
On your left. On your left.
Yeah.
So it's me again. Just to finish on a light-hearted note, I like to have a little joke now and again.
Yeah.
I've just thought of something that could save the human race, actually. Why don't you give one of these sets to President Trump, one set to Kim Jong, and they can fire away each other, and we'll all live happily ever after.
I think that's well, let's give her a round of applause. I think that's a fantastic. Yeah, I mean, I think that sounds. I think that's a great idea. I think we should do that. Let's all write a letter to the White House and to Kim Jong Un and request that they both get a virtual reality headset.
The latest model.
Yeah, the latest model, the best. So they never really come into real life. But that's a fantastic suggestion. Yeah. Any more questions?
That's it by the looks of it.
All right. Well, anyways, thank you so much for listening, and thank you for letting me come back and give you another talk. If you want to train, if you want to watch any virtual reality videos, please do come over and we'll find a virtual reality video, roller coasters, haunted house, whatever you want, whatever you want to try. We're more than happy to oblige and find a video for you. But sorry. No, we're not going to. No, we're not going to be showing that. But any other videos that you'd like to watch, we're more than happy to show you that. But anyways, thank you so much. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
Please thank Jacob. Thank you. And before you disappear into your virtual reality world, Jacob, we have a certificate of appreciation for you. If you'd just like to step down here, we'll have the press take your photograph.
Yes, fantastic.
This is another one for your collection.
Yes, another one for my collection.
Thank you so much.